Obviously, everybody knows the magic number after this one was 421 yards. That will be a number that is shouted to the skies, discussed all week long, and every opportunity a Steelers fan will get. It's already been mentioned to me like 5 times. And my future father-in-law showed up for dinner last night, and I went downstairs after doing some work just to say hello to everybody. And the first thing he said to me, he was like, 400 yards. I was like, 400 yards. Big day for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Meanwhile, Kenny Pickett throws for over 200 yards, couple of deep balls to Deontay and George. He looks just smooth. Like, he looked confident, and he looks like a complete quarterback for a complete game, and that was something the Pittsburgh Steelers were missing. Pat Freiermuth goes over 100 yards, 120 yards for the first time in his NFL career. And then Jaylen Warren comes out with a little quote that we'll dive into here in a minute. But the big question, the Pittsburgh Steelers, their offense, are they alive? Are they back? Is all it took was for Matt Canada to be fired for this team to finally click?
I mean, it certainly looks that way. I mean, I don't think they, stylistically doesn't look like they changed a whole lot of things. But I mean, like you said, Kenny just looks more confident. They were able to get Najee Harris going in the run game. I mean, I think Kenny was especially awesome. Like the difference in the game was really third downs. It felt like, I mean, he was 10 of 14 on third downs, threw for 165 yards. They picked up 22 first downs in all, and 15 of them came from Kenny Pickett. Like they were really good on those downs and were able to stay on the field, which, allowed them to sustain drives, control time of possession. And so even though they didn't put up a whole ton of points, it felt like they were in control of the game for the entire time. And that was the biggest difference to me. And then also, like Pat Freiermuth just coming out of nowhere and being like such a huge factor in the offense, having a career day, his first time, like not, being under Matt Canada's leadership. That's it's significant. And it's just like you said, it has less to do with, I think, the actual X's and O's and more just with like the confidence that this group had and that they played with against Cincinnati.
Yeah. It just like you said, like, you watch the game and there's slight changes. Like the Pittsburgh Steelers used the middle of the field. Who would have thought that was a possibility? They went deep. Who would have thought that they would allow Kenny Pickett to do such a thing? Pat Freiermuth was like actually utilized as a receiving tight end. Who would have thought, man? Who would have thought the seam was a thing for Pat Freiermuth? I remember. So I had, during training camp or whatever, you're allowed to report and watch everything. And I remember watching a practice one day, and I won't say if it was Pat. I won't say what tight end it may have been, but one of the tight ends was like losing their minds for a little bit. They weren't like angry, but they were kind of just complaining to Alfredo Roberts. They're like, why are we even out there? Like, why would you use the seam, or why would you not use the seam? They were losing their minds. And I was like, all right, that's definitely something to monitor here. And then throughout the season, it's like the middle of the field doesn't exist for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Boom, Pat Freiermuth comes alive, uses the seam on the first 2 drives. Like the first play of the game is just like, here you go, Pat Freiermuth. They used play action in the first drive of the series. Of the game? Who would have thought that was happening? It was just like, it wasn't schematical changes. It was just like, hey, let's just do things that normal NFL teams do and see if they work. And they all seemingly worked. And I think that built the confidence. I think that immediately it was just like, what else we got to lose here? Like, Matt Canada already got fired. We're not trying to save anybody's jobs at this point. We're just trying to play some football. And like, as crazy as it sounds, like, a week ago you were talking about, or we'd sit here and we'd talk about like, is it Kenny Pickett? Kenny Pickett looks terrible. Now I kind of like, my view on the whole situation is, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm jumping the gun here, is like, I kind of feel like Matt Canada was just trying so hard not to lose his job that he just put such a strong grip on this offense and said, hey, look, you can't make any mistakes. This is mistake-free football moving forward, which means we do nothing exciting. We do not throw into traffic. We do not throw into the middle of the field. Like, we don't do anything crazy. If I don't turn the ball over, we have an excuse to blame you and not me. And maybe I saved my job there.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see that. I mean, I think you hit on a good point about like the not wanting to take risks, like not wanting to give the ball up, not wanting to create a disaster when things aren't going particularly well. Like they were definitely more conservative before Matt Canada got fired versus after. Yes. I mean, Jaylen Warren even said it himself, saying that he was trying to be very delicate with it, but said that, they communicated better, but also they just were more willing to take shots. They were more willing to take risks downfields, and that opened some things up, like that, even just the threat of, George going deep or Deontay going deep or Pat running down the middle of the field. You can't afford to pay as much attention to Najee Harris, who ran crazy in this game and did a lot of stuff on his own, like being his own blocker and running straight through guys. But, it helped that, you had to think about the deep ball a little bit more. And I mean, like it also, I think, you also can't, avoid talking about the fact that Kenny was much more accurate in this game.
Yes.
Than he has been for most of the season, like especially going deep. So it all plays into it. But like you said, the aggression was just, that was a major difference. And they played a little bit more loose, played a little bit more free, and felt like they were kind of playing with, I don't know, I guess stress you would call it, but just like less pressure to kind of protect each other and everything. It felt like they were just kind of playing, and they were just looking for ways to win the game instead of kind of survive,
Yes, exactly. And I think that was the thing, is like after the game, you talk to Kenny, you talk to Pat, you talk to Jalen, and everybody kind of, Mike Tomlin did a very good job of deflecting. And I think Kenny and everybody else was also like, look, we're not trying to hurt anybody's feelings or take jabs at anybody. We care about Matt Canada, obviously. But like there were like Kenny said it, like Kenny would say something like it was nice to have multiple tight end sets out there and not run the football. And, Pat said it was nice to use the middle of the field. And Jalen obviously says this, like, it's little things that, like, it was like, instead of a post-game presser or a bunch of people talking and being like, yeah, we got to do this better, we got to do that better, when like really they realize like nothing's going to change. It kind of felt like, look, we made some changes and they worked, and it was nice. Like it was super good to go out there and feel an offense actually make adjustments and try to improve. And I think that was the biggest thing. And then there's Najee Harris, man. I mean, have you seen a game this season where Najee's run the football as well as, and just like, I think it's like an effort thing. Like I looked at Najee Harris yesterday and I was like, this is the most effort Najee's given since his rookie year, really, because he was just running angry. He was running with some new juice. It was like he saw the light and he was like, oh, here we go, man. Now I'm going to actually try to get something done. And that's not a jab at Najee. It was more just like, there's nothing worth fighting for when everything is bad. Now there was something worth fighting for. And Najee, I mean, in my opinion, came alive.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I didn't even think, so he ran for what, 99 yards, something like that, 100 yards. I did not feel like the offensive line was like particularly great. Like they were fine, but I felt like it was more Najee just running real angry, like being his own blocker, running straight through guys, pushing piles. Like, and I'll give Najee this, like Najee is never really one to like hold his tongue necessarily when he has like issues or something. Like he's going to let you know if he's upset, and he does that. He's done that this year, but I have a ton of respect for him playing with this kind of effort after, I mean, we all saw the press conference in Cleveland. Like it's pretty strange. It was clear that he was really upset and he was really pissed off, but to come back with that's what you have to do. That's what you have to do the following week when you kind of publicly display your displeasure like that, is you've got to play with that kind of effort. That's how you kind of prove that you're a team guy and that you're not just kind of trying to bring other people down. And Najee did that. I mean, and more. Like he showed the effort part was huge, and just him playing that hard, I felt like really backed up the idea that his frustrations are, they're not. He's not blaming people. He's not trying to point fingers. He's just upset with the direction of the team. Now he's trying to do everything that he can to break that team out of this slump, and he played a major part in doing that.
Yeah, I agree. That was, it was nice to see. Everybody thought it was going to be Jalen. Everybody thought it was going to be George Pickens, and turned into Pat Freiermuth and Najee Harris. And like, that's, if you ask the Pittsburgh Steelers, like, who would you like to benefit the most out of this change? I bet you the fan base would say Jalen and George. I bet you the Pittsburgh Steelers coaching staff would say our first round running back and our second round tight end, and then our first round quarterback would probably lead the list of guys that they'd like to see take a step forward and kind of get that spark and see that they are capable of a lot of things that the Pittsburgh Steelers have believed they're capable in. And that's just like, that's so crazy to say.